Who's heard of the Zappos story? I'm figuring if you're CX Tragics, you've got a fair idea what's going on at Zappos. All right, if you haven't, you're going to be enlightened this morning. The headline is that Zappos is probably the planet's greatest example of customer experience through people. Zappos was founded in 1999, and having been founded, they needed funding. And they got funding through a guy called Tony Hsieh. Now, Tony Hsieh is actually now the CEO of Zappos. And in 2009, Tony Hsieh sold Zappos to Amazon for $1.2 billion. In 10 years, they went from being just an online footwear and clothing retailer to becoming this world-beating, high-value online organisation. Tony himself had, in his last gig, sold his own business to Microsoft for a cool $265 million. So it's clear that he's got a fairly good idea around innovation, startup, and how to get the best out of organisations. Tony has a mantra for his organisation. You can't deliver great customer experience with unhappy employees. In the last organisation that I was working with, where it was a B2B only environment, and we adopted Net Promoter Score methodology to the letter of the law. We NPS measured at every point in the corridor of the customer experience. And we drove a culture that was fully underpinning and behind what the customer experience needed to look like. There were young people in funny hats who and wore unconventional clothing and perhaps operated a little bit unconventionally. They would typically be graduates or near, but they weren't your conventional corporate employee. And they were empowered to deliver great customer service. In fact, that was expected of them. They didn't have SLAs that constrained them. That meant that they had limited call times. If they had to be on the phone to a customer for 2 hours or 10 hours, so be it. Solve the customer's problem, deliver what the customer needs. That same organisation also promoted measurement at a almost beyond all belief. If you walked into that call centre at any moment of the day or the night, individuals that were on the phone, they would have their NPS scores up there, green, yellow or red, for you to see. Do you all understand the NPS methodology? NPS is where you get promoters who score 9s and 10s, and you deduct from that score your detractors, who is anybody who's given you a 0 to a 6, and you throw out the passives, which are the 7s and the 8s, and that gives you a score. The Zappos guys were writing up numbers like 90s. It's fairly unheard of numbers. But is it NPS that drives the behaviour change? And I think that's what I really want to delve into today. NPS is the measure, but if we want to innovate in customer experience, where do we go to do that? So if we think that innovation is doing something new or different, then how do we find what's new or different in customer experience in this wildly, I guess, digitally savvy age, and with a world full of CX experts who've got their versions of what is your best way, what's the best practice in which to do it? Where are we going to find that inspiration? I'm going to argue that customer experience has gone from being an experience, a qualitative feeling, outcome. What was the result of that interaction between me and a business, or a business and a business, or a person and a system, or a digital solution? It's gone from being qualitative and experiential to being a measure. We've turned the experience into the measure, and now it's the measure that's dictating the behaviour. And I'd argue we've turned it on its head, and we need to flip it back. In that same organisation I was referring to, NPS had become equivalent almost to net sales performance and EBITDA. Our bonuses were paid on achievement of the 3 metrics. And in the organisation I work in today, our bonuses are paid on the achievement of that metric. So, and we all say that what we measure matters, and what we measure is what motivates us. If you don't measure it, you aren't going to be able to change behaviour. But if the measurement is all that you're relying on, you're not going to get the behaviour change. So where do we find those linkages? We need to start thinking about the employee engagement. And I've done lots of mad research, as Alan would have implied this morning. All of a sudden, I've got to talk about customer experience and innovation and the things that I stand for. Well, I better make sure that the experts agree with me. And the experts do. There is a direct correlation between customer experience and employee experience. And in fact, Teletech, and if you know Teletech, they're an international leader in customer experience. They deliver systems and processes and consulting services around customer experience. And they released a report only this month that has actually correlated customer experience with employee experience at 4.3 out of 5. Back to Tony Hsieh. You can't deliver great customer experience if you've got unhappy employees. So where does the magic happen? Where do we get the magic in our innovation in customer experience? Our CCO or our CEO or our CMO, whoever owns customer experience in your organisation, and we need to introduce that person to the Chief Human Resources Officer. Because the Chief Human Resources Officer has actually got the keys to the kingdom. They hold all of that big data where the insights truly lie. If your Chief Human Resources Officer is doing their job and getting out there and surveying your employee base and getting data around what is driving employee engagement for them, they're also grabbing, hopefully, some really good verbatims around what doesn't work for people, what does work for people, and maybe what suggestions they've got about how we could improve things around here. And more often than not, it's going to be around what they believe will be better in being able to get a better customer experience. Have any of you ever read the verbatims out of an employee engagement survey? They're very, very revealing. And they do hold the keys to the kingdom for customer experience innovation. The voice of the employee is what we should be focusing on if we want to innovate in customer experience. It doesn't say we shouldn't be adopting great tools, great digital technologies, those things that are going to make it a smoother, more streamlined experience. But it's what we do in the employee space around culture and engagement. But I do caution you, don't make customer experience the reason to drive a good employee experience. Make employee experience the reason why you get great customer experience results. But it takes an authentic level of leadership that we very often don't feel that we can achieve. That authentic level of leadership says that I stand for the greatness of you, the employee, and I'm going to empower you to deliver customer delight. I'm going to give you the ability to go find the solutions to the problems that you're trying to solve. I stand behind you and I enable you. So if we want to build customer experience that delights our customers, that innovates, that shows that we are genuinely committed to those great results, and then yes, we'll get the great NPS scores and we'll get the great bonuses and the great outcomes, we need to go back to the core of the delivery of the customer experience. The magic lies in the employee and what the employee can offer. Can you imagine knowing that it's because of the system behind you is not working and you have no power to fix it and still trying to be positive in front of a customer? Even the greatest actor is eventually going to get to a point where they can't turn that on anymore. And that then has an impact on their well-being and their motivation to succeed. And you get that forever spiralling downward negativity that then impacts your customer experience. But if you are empowered as an employee to make change, and that you feel like you are a true evangelist of the organisation in which you work, and you are a customer advocate for that organisation, your likelihood of delivering great customer experience and innovating and contributing to the innovation conversation is going to be so much greater. So we need to listen to the voice of the employee, but we don't need to just listen, we need to hear it and we need to act on it. And we need to hire for people who are going to be those advocates in our organisation, who are going to have the courage to go out there and put it out there and say, these are the things we could and should do differently. The people who are motivated by the purpose for which they stand, which is to get better outcomes for other people. Innovation will only happen in the customer experience if we focus on the individuals in that organisation. I'd like to think that we could perhaps rely on some of the old-fashioned ways. You know that saying, everything old is new again? And if innovation is new, we can go back and get some of those old learnings and reapply them. There's a general manager in Westpac who works with the same organisation that I work with to develop capability across our organisations in terms of lifting skills to deliver great customer experience and to drive better employee engagement. He works on 4 key principles, 4 good old-fashioned key principles of customer experience, and I think probably one of the most innovative things I've heard in a long time. Respect, where the employee respects themselves, they respect the organisation they work in, and they respect the customer. And that transcends every interaction that they have with that customer. They also take responsibility. They own the accountability of resolving the problem, delivering the solution, whatever it takes to deliver a really positive customer experience or interaction. They focus on simplicity. How many times when you go to talk to somebody about getting a solution developed or going to get something solved, what seems so simple, it becomes complex. So if you can make the complex simple or don't let the simple become complex, you're going to have a much better customer experience. And the last thing is the solution. Be solutions focused, whether it's delivering new products and solutions through your customer service delivery, and that can be the most complex customer solution build, or it can be resolving their problems. Be solution oriented. Don't give up until the solution is delivered. Listen for the voice of the customer. Listen for the voice of the employee, who will be able to share with you those really good miracle, magic gems around customer experience. And when you go to innovate, start there. Thank you for having me.